Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here once again with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, can you believe it's transfer rumour mill season already? Well, it's not even Halloween yet, mate. It's not even been the spookiest season, and it's transfer rumour mill season.
Mate, it's crazy. It's crazy. But this is what comes when you get a new manager, especially when you poach one for a club, because we had the same thing with Gerrard, whereby we were linked with Ryan Kent and Alfredo Morelos and Calvin Bassey and Connor Goldson and Glenn Kamara. And it just these things happen. The paper love doing this. How much truth there is in this, I don't know. But yeah, this won't be as I was going to say, this won't be the first, but it is the first. It certainly won't be the last Villarreal player that we're linked with. Expect a lot more of these. And to be honest with you, mate, in quite stark contrast to the Rangers links, I actually won a few of these.
Yeah, there is quite a few exciting players here. We're going to speak about one where there has been, I don't want to say a solid link, but there has been a link with the main source being Fichajes, I think is how you pronounce it, nice. A Spanish outlet. They're not known for being the most reliable, if we're being completely honest, but they're not the only outlet that's reporting this, which is why we thought we'd pick it up. And it's a fairly interesting and exciting young prospect as well in Yeremy Pino, Dan. Now, this is a player who we spoke about initially in the Emery podcast, didn't we, about how exciting this guy is. And I mean, he's been linked with moves away before. He's only 20 years old. And, you know, within the confines of Spain, he is rated extremely highly, mate. He's proven to be highly versatile, playing both on the left and the right, even at times at centre forward. This season, he's currently only got a goal and an assist to his name in 14 appearances. However, all time for Villarreal, 91 appearances, 15 goals, 6 assists. I wouldn't be too hell-bent on them numbers. This guy's a very exciting prospect. Again, in the new Emery team as well, you have a responsibility to defend, which is something to consider as well. But this guy's versatility, the explosive pace, mate, the diversity that there is there, this is one to get excited about, I think it's fair to say.
Yes, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. It's actually really interesting because he came through at Las Palmas, who have had a number of quite exciting youth products come through their ranks in recent years. Obviously, Pedri is someone who's, one of the highest performing midfielders in the world at this current time in that Barcelona midfield. But he didn't come through there. That's a pretty common misconception, I think, because he and Gabi both play in that midfield together. Obviously, Gabi is a product of La Masia. Pedri isn't. Pedri is not. Pedri came through at Las Palmas at a similar time to Yeremy Pino did. Yeremy Pino came through there. He's playing for Las Palmas after a couple of teams like Hurricane before Villarreal snapped him up into their youth academy in 2017. And he's gone through the ranks there. He played for their C team for one season before he made a huge leap straight into the Villarreal squad. And it's gone very well, mate. As you said, he's been a stalwart figure in that Villarreal side for a lot of that time. He's only 20 years old, as I said. And he's got 6 caps for Spain now, so he's been well rewarded for some good form in La Liga. Obviously, he went and won that Europa League title with Villarreal, and he was key. He was key in Villarreal's run to the Champions League semi-finals last season. And yeah, as you say, mate, the numbers don't stand out. They don't jump up and slap you in the face. But it's more what this guy is doing at his age. Most of what he's done in his Villarreal career has been as a teenager. He only turned 20 a week ago today at the time of recording. So his birthday is the 20th of October. So, you know, a little pinch of salt in that everything that you can see that Pino has done, he's done as a teenager, which is quite remarkable, really. There's been a few nominations for the Golden Boy Award in there as well. So, yeah, as I said, the numbers aren't amazing, but he's competing with a lot of quality in those wide positions. And we know that Emery has someone that puts a lot of emphasis on wingers. It's not something we have a great abundance of at Villa. So I imagine that one of his first signings will be someone to play in that wide position. And if it's someone tried and tested and someone as excited as Pino, who we've seen linked with Arsenal and Chelsea and some other Premier League clubs previously, I think it makes a lot of sense.
It does, mate. It does. And what's really exciting about this guy is the areas in which he operates, right? You guys will sit to he's averaging around 1.43 shots per 90, which is somewhat impressive. And of those shots, they're generally taken from around the 12-yard line, which tells you everything you need to know about this guy. This guy's looking to get into the box. He's looking to attack. He's looking to be on the front foot consistently. And when you look at, he's completing 1.4 dribbles per 90, he's averaging 4.71 touches in the attacking penalty area, which should tell you everything you need to know. That puts him within the top 4 percentile of midfielders over the past year in doing so. And he's receiving around 4.41 progressive passes per 90 as well, which again, that's pretty respectable. And that is quite telling of the style in which Villarreal play. He's not necessarily a ball carrier, but he's going to be somebody who's getting on to the end of maybe 30, 40-yard pingers and looking to really be direct in that box, which is something that I think we can be really excited about, because we can and have accused Villa of not being the most direct team and not being able to attack with pace and to really, wing play. Wing play is something that we've, until Aaron Danks came and took the helm, mate, that we didn't really have at all, because we've sold all of our wingers, and we've spoke about the likes of Bertie, Amar, Trez on previous podcasts, but Pino's a cut above, mate, and it is genuinely a really exciting transfer. There's some outlets saying it's going to be £60 million. There's some outlets saying £40 million. I can't imagine, after we've taken their manager, Villarreal are going to be too keen on us taking their hottest prospect. But if a deal can be struck here, mate, this could be a really important transfer for the club. And I guess it does kind of beg the question, what does it mean for the likes of Leon, Emi? Maybe more so Coutinho, because I think you need depth in the wide positions. And obviously Emi and Leon can play wides. Phil can as well, but I think the argument as to whether he's effective wide left is certainly a valid one to have, mate. But, if you can bring this guy in, there's going to be so many big clubs sniffing around Yeremy Pino, mate. So Villa will have to act fast to get this one done. And we're lucky that we've got the added benefit of him, having a relationship with Unai.
Yeah, for sure, mate. And it's important to preference. And this is one of the things that I mentioned when we got Unai Emery in, that Villarreal are a small club. And I don't mean that in terms of their stature on the European scene, but physically, it's not a massive, like I said, Villarreal has a population of just over 50,000, and the stadium, formerly El Madrigal, is 23,500. So on a match day, you've got about half the population of Villarreal in the stadium. It's quite amazing. They're currently owned by a Spanish businessman, Fernando Roy, who made his fortune in selling ceramic tiles. Hence La Ceramica, which is now the name of their stadium. This is as I say, mate, I don't want to liken them to a Burnley, but this is why their presence in the Champions League semi-finals was so impressive. This is a club from a very, very, very small town in Spain. They do very shrewd business. They tend to invest in youngers like Pino. They don't really find that they owe anything to anyone, but that comes with problems. And that meant that since COVID, they've really been struggling financial. There's a really good thread on Twitter by Swiss Ramble that was posted in the summer ahead of the transfer window, where they worried that Villarreal would have to sell quite a lot of their assets. And it really puts into perspective their troubles financially, and not so much troubles, but this is a club that live by the seat of their pants. Their business model owes a lot to player trading. They've made it quite incredible 192 million euros in player sales across the last 8 years. The largest was a 46 million deal in 2020, which sent Pablo Fornals to West Ham. The club has a really good record of developing academy players who they then flip for quite a high profit. And I think when you look at the likes of Pino and Chukwueze and these guys, Pau Torres is someone that's continuously linked with a move away. I don't know if Moneyball is the right word, because they do invest more in young players. They've got one of the youngest squads in La Liga as a result. But these guys won't stay around forever, unfortunately. And more often than not, if you do tempt Villarreal with a good money bid for one of their players, they're quite likely to accept, because that's just the club model and that's how they do. And that's why I think, when you look at someone like Emery, it's all the more impressive that he achieved what he did with them, considering there's quite a lot of squad turnover. It's genuinely quite a young squad. And yeah, as I say, when more often than not they're accepting these big money bids for their players, and that sort of every year you're losing the best player at the club. It's all the more impressive what Emery did, as I said. But it means that, yeah, as I said, if you do stump up a good bit of cash for Yeremy Pino, you're in with a shot.
I think looking at on Transfermarkt, they have him valued at £36 million. Interestingly, mate, he's signed to the same agency who represent the likes of Jack Grealish, Eduardo Camavinga, Calvin Phillips, Ibrahima Konate, Ben Chilwell. So there's some really big names in there, mate. Some really high value players. I could imagine that with Jack Grealish maybe being in there, that there's some involvements with Jonathan Barber, who's also Gareth Bale's agent as well, who I'm going to assume I can't see on this list because his value's probably plummeted massively in the way this Transfermarkt list is gone. It's gone from high to low. I can't see Bale, but obviously we know that Barber was Bale's agent as well. So if there's one thing we know, mate, about him, he's looking for big money moves. He's looking for big money moves for his clients. That's what he's doing, and I don't think he'll get the contract that Pino. It's if Pino was to want to stay, Villarreal won't necessarily be able to stump up the kind of cash that we can. So there's many benefits for Pino being shopped around, and I'm sure having his agency, ICM, Stella Sports, previously doing business with Aston Villa, that could possibly speed things up when it comes to the negotiations of a player. The next player that we wanted to talk about, mate, one again, he hasn't been linked. There is no links. It's important to state that to anybody who doesn't know what our transfer rumour episodes are or have been about. The old transfer rumour mills that we used to do, there was always a player linked and then a player who we would like to see us sign. And seeing as everyone has been talking about Arnott Danjuma, we thought we'd talk about him, mate, because he's been a revelation for Villarreal, and he's a name that for some will ring some bells from his time at Bournemouth. Obviously spent a bit of time in the Championship, but he, I don't want to say forced a move, but he felt like his time was up and he needed to prove himself on a bigger stage. Again, whether Villarreal are a bigger club than Bournemouth, maybe that is up for debate. I don't know. But obviously in terms of competing in European competitions and where Danjuma saw his career going, it's a move that made total sense. And, hindsight's a wonderful thing, mate, because what a move it's been and what a player Danjuma has proven to develop into, right? He's been absolutely fantastic. He started to operate kind of on the left, but as you mentioned in the last podcast, mate, he's kind of morphed into that. I don't want to say false nine, but he's spearheading the attack now down the center of the pitch, and a lot of the time he does kind of receive the ball on the left and then has that option to come inside on his right foot. This is a player again, Transfermarkt having marked down as a £45 million player. I'd say that's probably fair in today's market. One, mate, can you see us going in for Danjuma? And two, what did you see him offering the squad? Because I look at him and I see a very similar player to Ollie Watkins, if I'm being completely honest, maybe a more clinical player.
Yeah, I think that there's certainly in profile there's similarities there. Danjuma, I think, has got a lot more in terms of playing on the shoulder and playing in behind than perhaps Ollie does. But what Danjuma brings is a goal threat from wide positions that perhaps we don't really have at the club, sort of playing in one of those narrow, wide forward roles. Obviously, he was amazing in the Champions League last season, scored 10 times in the league and then 6 in 11 in that Champions League season. So he had an amazing year. And let me just give you a quote, mate. When he signed for Villarreal, he spoke to ESPN and said that Unai Emery is special. He's one of the main reasons why I came to Villarreal. It's such a privilege to work under him as a coach, and I'm excited for the season ahead. And so I think obviously we're going to hear a few players speak like this. And as you say, there's no links, but there certainly will be. there certainly will be. I would put my house on the fact that we're going to be linked with a lot of Villarreal players. As I said in the Newcastle preview in the coming weeks, I think we will inevitably see Chukwueze at some point. Pau Torres is someone that who I think will certainly come up as well. And obviously there's other good guys in there, like Gerald Romero and stuff like that. So it's one of those where, as you say, there's no links. He's probably the player which I think is perhaps most suited to Premier League football. He's one where, obviously Yeremy Pino hasn't got those outlying stats. And to an extent, neither does Samu Chukwueze. But Ana Danjuma certainly does. And I'm not going to say he's quite the main man at Villarreal, because Romero is someone that like continuously performs, and obviously is Spain's leading nine as well. But he's certainly up there, and the impact he's made in La Liga in like a season and a half is quite amazing, because it raised eyebrows, didn't it? That move from Bournemouth to head out on the continent to a big club in terms of European stature in Villarreal. But he certainly proved his worth, and it will be exciting. I don't think it's his final career move. There's obviously plenty of moves in him yet. But yeah, it's someone that I think certainly in wide positions, we're going to see a lot of links to. Yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see how I think we recruit for the forward positions specifically. And that Danjuma role, I think, is going to be very important. And I think the 5 games, I think it is, until the January transfer market are going to be really big ones for Ollie Watkins, I feel, because that's probably the position that we're going to see him occupy, right? That is going to be that sort of left forward, centre forward type position, which is interesting because I think so the way that, and we kind of briefly touched on it in the last podcast, mate, but the way Emery sort of sets his team up with this asymmetrical 4-4-2, obviously with Chukwueze being the out and out wide man in that midfield, Chukwueze plays on the right. Now, if I'm looking at Villa, how Villa are going to set up like this, you'd flip that, right? Because I think we saw the other day, Bailey was much better on the left. Ollie was much better on the right. So you would have Leon in the Chukwueze role, but sort of flip that and then have like Ollie and Ings leading the lineup. But obviously Ollie kind of peels out to the right, much in the fashion that Danjuma does to the left for that Villarreal system. So it's going to be interesting to see how we line up. Again, this is guesswork. This is just going off what we know and what we've seen from Villarreal. His style could have just completely decided to change his footballing philosophy in the past week, mate. We don't know that. But I think it's going to be quite interesting to see where Emery sees this squad going in the current vision of the players that we've got. We're hearing he's going to be backed, mate. How to what extent, we don't know. I feel with the kind of backing that, a Danjuma and a Pino, you're looking at around £80 million realistically, probably for the pair, mate. What other funds will be left for the other holes that perhaps, he perceives in the squad? And then if you're spending that much money, mate, you're really banking on a high finish this season, right? Surely.
Yeah. I think it would be interesting to see what kind of moves we make in January. But yeah, I mean, it's clear that Emery won't have the assets just yet to fully implement the system that he wants to. So unfortunately, again, I think it is another one of those cases where it's going to take 2 or 3 transfer windows. But such is the nature of sacking a manager, unfortunately.
It is, mate. It is. We're going to be building a new squad. It's going to be interesting. There's going to be plenty more transfer rumours for you guys. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. If you don't know, we're on TikTok and Instagram. On TikTok, it's at Heart of the Holte. On Instagram, it's at Villa Pod. We're trying to grow them. So, we're just trying to make the podcast way more accessible for you guys. So we're going to get clips up. They're going out most days on TikTok and Instagram. We've also got YouTube Shorts going up. The best clips from the podcast are going to be going up as YouTube Shorts. So make sure you engage and interact with them. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do so. We've grown really nicely over the past month. So we appreciate all you new subscribers, all the returning faces, all the same guys as usual. You guys are the GOATs. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and up the Villa.